I never believed in Friday the 13th nonsense, but now I'll forever fear the date. There's always a spirit, a mysterious thing, a force field that's invisible yet able to be felt spiritually. It looms on your conscience and clouds your life, deteriorating your mental health, and sometimes you don't even know that you're suffering because we're used to it. We know no different. This strange aura is inexplainable and too damn real and seemingly far away, close to our thoughts, but far away from consuming our entire being. Today my beliefs were proven fictitious and so very wrong. The day began like any other, waking groggily at 6 a.m. to my monotonous alarm on my too bright iPhone. Another day of work, stuck in society's hamster wheel. But when I was awake enough to actually think this for myself, there was a disruption. A corrupted disruption that echoed throughout my entire skull. A low rumbling vibration and muffled screams. "You are not in control," the voices said, "and you never have been." I didn't dare speak or think. I seemed incapable of thinking. Anyway, because if it was as if I'd been taken over, like I was a sim or a puppet, controlled and believed that I am my own independent being. I wanted to think back, to communicate through my thoughts. The only thing I had left that could be mine if I tried hard enough. But the fear was too strong, gripping me down and stripping me of any humanity. So I'm just on autopilot, just listening. It's impossible to not listen anyway. The voices are too loud. I never thought you could change the volume of the voices inside your head. I know I'm not dreaming, because I can pinch myself, and it hurts. I've pinched myself numerous times now, and normally, I guess I'd say that it hurt. But nothing hurts as much as this, as being stuck and incapable of control. I don't know what normal is anymore. Society is in control. I remember the echo saying, "You'll never be truly independent or able to think for yourself." My vision flickers, and I'm convinced that this must be some stupid promo for the new IT film. But then, when I find myself on the floor, I know that I have to get help. Urgently. I'm not okay. I mean, I've never been truly okay when somebody's asked me, but this is far worse. It's like what they were telling me, that I've never been truly powerful enough to make myself feel okay, or to even convince myself. I've been stuck in the hospital for 3 hours now. They won't let me go, and they're convinced I'm schizophrenic. I'm not. I know I'm not. They're thinking I'm crazy, that I'm some strange, ill human who's finally reached breaking point. The truth is, I haven't reached breaking point. I've reached the point where I can finally piece all of the broken information that I've been forced to believe together. I don't know if I'll be fine tomorrow, or if this will be an annual occurrence. The only thing I do know is that today, you're gonna feel something tugging on your thoughts, luring you toward some evil force. Fight back, please. Don't be paralyzed like me. I'm scared that they can hear my frenzied thought process as I'm typing this, and that they'll torture me more. Stay safe, and have a careful Friday the 13th. I'll keep you updated if they let me. They, being the ignorant staff here, and whatever the hell's taken over. Again, be safe and fight back. This isn't an illusion or promotion, and I'm not insane. I swear. I'm warning you because I need to, because I'm the first person who seems to have updated the internet. Maybe people have on Facebook, but they won't let me type that. Face. Book. I'll find out what's happening. Don't sleep yet. Stay preoccupied. Nobody in my town answers a knock at the door after midnight. My town was in many regards like any other. Town festivals, church gatherings. The only thing that set us apart from any other town was the curfew. Nobody was allowed outside after 12 a.m. At 11:30, the police would sweep the area, making sure everyone was inside. We weren't allowed back out until sunrise. We also were advised to never answer a knock at the door, no matter how desperate or human the entity on the other side seemed. Nobody in my town disobeyed this rule until tonight. Mr. and Mrs. T were new to the neighborhood, and we did give them the warning about the town curfew. They asked why, and we just told them that they can't be outside and had a police officer to enforce this rule. That very night they moved in, we heard screaming and arguing coming from their house. It was 11:58 p.m., and Mr. T did not acknowledge the warning and ran outside for a cigarette. The police had already done their scan of the town, and nobody would step outside to save him. The clock turned 12, and the moon became obscured by dark clouds. I looked out the window from my bedroom. I could see a few houses doing the same. That's when the streetlights went out. We heard panic, and only the light from the neighbors peeping out their windows enlightened the horrific scene. Shadows gathered around Mr. T, and we saw what looked like long, shadowy arms reach up from the ground and coil around the unfortunate man. "No! No! Let me go!" he shouted, in vain, trying to get loose, but it was futile. That's when Mrs. T ran out to join him. "Jerry!" she screamed, to the man who was already half submerged in the asphalt ground. Going outside to save her husband was the last mistake she would make, for when she did, the arms coiled around her too. "No! Help! Somebody help!" She was muffled when one of the hands closed her mouth and dragged her down with her husband, who was already dead. That's when we heard it knocking at the door, followed by a voice. It sounded like Mr. T, but I knew better. "Please, sir, let me in. It's very cold out here. Please, they will get me if you don't let me in just for a moment." We knew better than to answer knocks at the door when the shadows gathered. I tried to sleep but couldn't. I have not seen the shadows take people before. It was hard to witness. We thought as long as we followed the curfew and stayed in our houses that we would be safe. We were wrong. It was a week after the incident, and the town was due for a lunar eclipse. I figured the light of the moon would be enough to dispel the darkness and save me from the boogeyman at night. I was wrong. That night came, and we went about our usual routine, locking the doors, windows, and drawing the curtains. While we were drawing the curtains, we noticed a thick fog begin to set in. We didn't think much about it. I did panic a little when I looked at the calendar and saw that the date had read Friday the 13th. I was never a big buyer into Unlucky 13, but something about it this time made me uneasy. We were off to bed as the clock read 12:01 a.m. That's when a strong wind flew by. Things went from weird to terrifying and dangerous when the wind became so strong it shattered one of the windows. I was in awe and terror as I watched the curtains, which was our last defense against the shadows, lift from the wind current to reveal the darkness oozing into our house like a vapor cloud. My dad grabbed me up, and my mom grabbed my sister and rushed us to the upstairs bedroom. We could hear screams and panic through the harsh wind. This had never happened before. It couldn't invade your house. Was it stronger somehow? We rushed ourselves into Mom and Dad's giant closet and locked the door, taking a jacket and stuffing it under the door, trying to close off every entrance to the closet. My sister cried. My dad was shaking with fear. My mom tried to comfort both, and I just stood there shocked. Mom had her phone so we could see the time. It was 12:10. We had a long night ahead of us, so we grabbed some clothes to make a pseudo bed and slept together the best we could. We woke up at some odd hours of the night to knocking on our closet. One voice pretending to be our neighbor, asking to take her child. Another was my best friend Tony. I covered my ears knowing we were hearing the voices of the deceased. It was 6:12 when my dad looked out the closet to see if it was safe. And it was. The darkness was gone. The sky was a metallic gray and blue. We walked downstairs to see our living space covered in broken glass and blown over ornaments. We walked outside to a hellscape, empty neighborhoods, with the exception of a few people who managed to somehow survive the night. Everyone in that town moved the same day. It's a ghost town now, and no one should ever visit it. Friday the 13th. Have you ever seen someone break a tradition? Seen them getting up out of nowhere and then doing something they had been warned not to? I call it stupidity. There's a tradition in our town. Only a few families follow it these days, and mine is amongst them. But back in those good old days, everyone, every single living thing would follow that tradition. Whenever the calendar displayed Friday the 13th, it meant one thing. Get inside your houses and lock yourselves before 7 p.m. And yeah, don't come out before 12 hours. Even animals would sense that something was horribly wrong. Stray or tamed, they would crawl inside whatever was available. They didn't even whimper, just stayed there silently. Everything felt wrong for those 12 hours. I never knew why. As far as I can remember, even a 5-year-old me didn't throw tantrums or question my parents on the nights. I just shut up and obeyed. We shut, locked, and chained every door and window. Windows were boarded up, and my parents made sure that there were no openings anywhere. We lived in a place where the weather didn't get too cold, and there were no chimneys in any of the houses. We locked all the doors and then pulled a shutter that we had installed from inside. You had exactly 13 minutes to do your business, and then the lights were turned off. Then, we all just sort of huddled in my parents' bedroom, sitting in the dark. We didn't talk. We didn't move. We just waited there. The door leading to my parents' room was locked from the inside as well, and the strongest of shutters were installed there. We had to make sure all of this was done before 7 p.m., because as soon as the clock hit 7, 13 seconds later, everything would fall silent. There would be no noise. No unknown beast roamed outside. There were no werewolves, vampires, or spirits. It was just silence. I was 10 when I asked my parents the reason for doing all this. There is no one outside and nothing that can come inside. It's the night, dear. The night. No one who has gone outside on Friday the 13th has come back again. We lock the doors so that we aren't tempted to go outside. The lock and the darkness can remind us that we must follow the tradition and stay inside, Mom replied. I still think that she says this because of Aunt May. who was Mom's twin. She went missing on Friday the 13th. Of course, to you people, it is going to sound like an easy task, sitting there in the dark, doing nothing but just listening. But trust me, it kind of plays with your sanity. Ever since you could think, your instinct told you that something was wrong on these nights. The silence seemed to bounce from everywhere. And to top that all, you're not supposed to make a sound. I remember a night when crunching of leaves under footsteps suddenly broke the silence. It felt like it was coming from inside of our house. But then it suddenly stopped. Silence reigned once again. We looked at each other, our wide eyes glowing in the dark. The only sound in the house was the soft ticking of the clocks. For a second it seemed just like a normal night, when you were lying in your bed, unable to sleep, while everyone else is asleep. But suddenly, out of nowhere came a knock. Not from the window, not from the door, but from under the bed on which we were sitting. It was just a soft knock, 3 times. I nearly screamed, but Mom's hand covered my mouth, and I could feel her shaking as she covered her own as well. My sister Linda hugged Mom tightly while we waited for another knock, for the bed to blow up, for something to crawl out of the bed. But nothing happened. The night was silent. We didn't move a muscle. Then suddenly, we heard a scream from the house next to us. It was that old man's son, James. We heard loud thumping from their house while we hugged each other even tighter. Then I heard their shutters being drawn up, and the front door was kicked open. I closed my eyes, letting a few tears drip down my chin as I imagined, or rather, tried to imagine what might be happening. James was a 30-something-year-old man who still lived with his father. He suddenly roared, "I'm done! Done with this bullshit, Father! There's nothing, absolutely nothing here. I can't see why the hell we sit here, in the dark, when everything is perfect." I heard the old man again, telling his son something, while still trying to keep his voice down. A short argument followed before James bellowed, "I'm just tired of this nonsense. I'm not sitting here like a little child. I'm gonna man up and save this effing town, or find out what the hell is wrong." I heard James give a shrill cry, and then nothing. Everything was silent again. The next morning, the clock hit 7 and we moved. I toppled on the floor. My legs were numb and stiff. My sister and I weren't allowed to go outside, but we did manage to dig out some information from straining our ears, pressing them against the doors, trying to make something out of the hushed conversations. James had gone out of the house. His father ran after him, trying to get him back inside. That is it. Both of them were gone. Their front door was wide open the next morning. They were never found. Taken, stolen by the night, Mom would say. Then one day, James suddenly turned up. It was a Sunday morning. Mom and I were coming home from the grocery store when we saw James sitting in his yard. He waved at us and called, "How's it going?" I looked at Mom, dumbstruck. What the actual... But I had no time to complete the rest of my sentence. Mom grabbed me and we ran away at full speed. Again, Linda and I weren't allowed to go outside, except for school. Again, we tried to get a clue of what was happening by pressing our ears against the door, trying to dig something out. The whole town was in shock. James and his father were the first people to turn up alive, without even so much as a scratch on their faces. There is nothing there. The whole town has gone mental. James would go around the town telling everyone. The next ones to roam out in the night were a group of teenagers. They too came back home the next morning. James was right. There is nothing out there. One person must have gone missing on Friday the 13th, and then the whole town fell into this superstition that you cannot go out on that night. Slowly, more and more people started going out and turned back unharmed and looked really happy. People stopped locking their homes to the extreme measures. They started treating the night as a normal night, but not us. "Mom, why do we still do all this?" I asked her one night. "Nothing's happened to anyone so far. Why don't we just treat this night as a normal night?" "Haven't you noticed?" she asked as she pulled the shutter down. "All these people who went out are not themselves. They have been replaced." "You mean all these people are doppelgangers?" "No, there's something even worse than that. They might look like them, act like them, behave like the people they stole, but they are not them. If you look into their eyes, Stacy, you can see that. They are fake. No one can live if you break traditions. And so we do it. We lock our doors, windows, pull down our shutters. We huddle together under blankets and wait. We can hear people going out and having fun. But our parents tell us that this is all a trap. Mom looks at me with wide eyes and whispers slowly, "We are good people, Stacy. We don't break traditions. All these people are not real, and they will try to take us as well. But no matter what they say, don't go out." I trust my parents. I believe them. There are very few people in this town who still follow this tradition. We know the truth. They know the truth. They know that we know the truth. "You and your family are crazy," a kid in my school told me. "Why don't you come out at night? There's nothing out there." I don't give a damn. They can call us crazy. They can call us mental. But we are not imagining things. We know that these people are not real anymore. They are imposters and doppelgangers. We are not imagining things. We are not crazy. But sometimes I do think, what if we really are the crazy ones? What if everything is normal, but we are the ones who are making things up? No, this cannot happen. We are not making things up. This is true. This has to be true. Those who go out on Friday the 13th end up missing, and they get replaced by duplicates. I don't give a damn on who is right or wrong. All I know is whenever the night comes, we lock up. After all, we are a good family, and we follow tradition. I would like to give a heartfelt thank you to the special friends of the channel for your overwhelming generosity. If you would like to support the channel, the link is below in the description. Also, please send me your stories and poems to duchessofdarkness27@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at duchess.ofdarkness and Twitter at duchessofdark_n2. I want to thank all my listeners for your kindness, your encouragement, and your support. It means the world to me. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.